Low wages, low risk.
It looks like money down the drain to me.
We're trying to offload him for 30 million, 22 years old.
It's not really a very good use of a budget, though, is it? You've done a Forest swindle, and I've done a Villa swindle.
Yeah.
You've done these swindles? I think he's got a goal. I think his time's come and it's game over.
Just get it done.
Yes, I think they have to go and get it done. Right, to Geordie Journos, we're back at our usual spot in the Brandlin. Quite a summer theme, isn't it? Getting a sort of talks around the campfire.
Sunny outside, so we'll come inside.
And the beer garden's looking lovely, actually.
The Brandlin in Gosforth. Gosforth High Street, if you don't know. Enough waffling from me, straight into it. We've got quite a structured video today.
Do you reckon?
By our standards.
By our standards, of course. So, we're going to split this into two distinct parts. The first part of the video is going to be, as the title says, this is the squad audit. You asked for it, we're going to deliver. We did it last year. Last year it was in your sunny backyard.
Yes.
Not too far from here. But this time we've decided to sort of hive ourselves away. No, so we did it last year, keep, sell, all that kind of thing, and you guys kind of wanted that sort of thing again. So first off, we would go through our squad audit, go through the squad as it stands at present, where we think it needs strengthened, and go through every individual player and decide who goes and who stays. Then a bit of fun in the second half, don't we?
Yes.
So second half, we're going to break, and then we're going to go to our players and how we would spend Newcastle United's transfer budget. We don't know what the transfer budget is. We're going off loose thoughts, ideas. We're trying to spend about 100 million.
Plus any
sales, etc. I don't know how successful. I wasn't greatly successful, I'll be honest with you. But what we've done is, look, we're going to admit to this, we have a limited knowledge of the foreign markets, of course.
Yeah.
But we have watched every single player, I think, on our lists that are domestic.
Yes.
In person, at least once in the last season.
It's limited scouting.
It is. And as you said off air, if Newcastle United are following our scouting methods, there's something seriously gone wrong.
You'd like to think Newcastle are far more in-depth than what we've done, which is this morning probably plucked up a few players that have stood out for us this season and maybe done a little bit of research. But Newcastle, having had basically a year to prepare and scout players and work out how much they're worth, you'd like to think they'd do a lot better than three lads who've just sort of playing Football Manager.
I'm not sure, mate.
You'd like to think.
When you look at the names, I'm not sure. Anyway, I digress. I'm sure they have. Right.
Squad audit. Do you want to start with the goalkeepers?
Yeah, so we'll go through the goalkeepers. And do let me know what you guys think. We'll obviously have our opinions, but there is a comment section below that you can get involved in the conversation. And obviously we do go through the comments and let us know what you think of your own squad audit. And the second half of the show, I'll prompt you again for your thoughts on who Newcastle United should really sign this summer.
Do you want to start where we're sort of topic of our last video, John Ruddy, marked for release? Do you release him?
Yes.
It's a simple yes or no.
Yes to me.
Yes.
I don't see any benefit really in keeping him. Not when I think you're going to have to sign a goalkeeper anyway. I don't see any benefit.
Okay, that's out of the way.
Yes.
So the number one in actual number, Martin Dubravka, keep or sell or loan?
Sell. Wants to go, let him go.
Yeah. Sell, 100%. I mean, if there's an offer there, suitable offer, you'd take it.
Yeah, he's been a great servant to Newcastle, and I think he's sort of had a bit of a renaissance midway through the season. It was really good to see, and then he was in such good form that it got to a degree where going into the Carabao Cup final, is it Martin Dubravka, is it Nick Pope? I was in the Martin Dubravka camp again because I think as a ball playing or more of a footballer, he has key strengths over Nick Pope, but Nick Pope's obvious strengths in stopping shots, which he was hot and cold on initially, and then I thought he came strong towards the back end of the season, Nick Pope, who, moving on to, I would keep.
Yeah, so the difference, I think it's a toss of a coin with Dubravka and Pope. Pope probably gets you a little bit more money in return. You don't really get a lot back from Dubravka. It's almost just a handshake and see you later and go and sign for whatever you need with him, just having that extra year on his contract. I think Nick Pope might only have a year as well, to be honest. But I think Nick Pope, it's quite obvious that the manager sees Nick Pope as his number one, not Martin Dubravka, so I would be more tempted to keep with Nick Pope. So I'm saying stay on Nick Pope. Even though I think he's got huge limitations in the modern game. Huge limitations, but is a very good shot stopper.
I think Nick Pope, we talked about it last night at the pub, it's one of those, Nick Pope, when your back's against the walls against PSG away or Liverpool away, and you just need someone to keep the ball out the net, there's few better.
Yeah.
It's when you're actually having to
when you're controlling the game and your keeper
and
becomes another defender at times, you know, like he's literally stepping out and finding passes, beating the press in certain games. Nick Pope has not got that in his armoury, and that's just the way it is. And that's why he's limited in the modern game. Can't really get away from it.
Yeah, keep just purely for the reason that he's been Newcastle's clear number one for 2 seasons. I think the back end last season showed form that he did during the last Champions League qualification season. Pulled off some big saves since come back into the team. It was that Carabao Cup final where it was like, is it going to be Dubravka, Nick Pope? Pope gets a nod, and from then on I think was very, very good towards the back end of the season. So, no, for the reason that you've just mentioned there as well, going to places like potentially Real Madrid, San Siro again, Parc des Princes, whatever. Nick Pope in those games last time was outstanding. I do think you need him in between the sticks for those type of games.
And the rest don't really matter, do they? Gillespie's just
really. Mark Gillespie is just
collector, isn't he?
cheerleader, whatever.
Well, he is. I mean, that's not messing about. He's a cone collector.
He
brings the vibes, brings the positive.
Starts all the chance in the dressing room, not it?
I don't get it. But there must be a reason for it.
He's not harming.
It's not harming anybody.
It's low risk in it, like low fee. Low wages, low risk. If you
looks like money down the drain to me, but
it depends how much.
Low money, but I know, but it's not really a very good use of a budget, though, is it? I wouldn't. It's like it's almost an asset as, you know, those subscriptions that you might accidentally sign up for and then forget about that come out of your bank account. Mark Gillespie is that to the Newcastle United squad. He's an Amazon Prime that you forgot you signed up to for that one thing you got delivered at Christmas.
To be fair, I think he'd probably admit that he's probably got the best job in the world.
Yeah.
Like, he literally just goes around, follows a team, starts chants on stages to win a trophy, all types of that stuff. Literally
gets the Jaegers in.
I does. I did. I must seen that video on the
39 Jaeger bombs.
It was good fun. I've got now against the bloke. I'm just saying it just doesn't make sense.
From Eddie Howe's perspective, he's always quite big on big personalities behind the scenes, and you clearly sees Mark Gillespie as a good lad.
An unsung hero as well.
I love Eddie Howe, but I think we make far too many excuses for this character thing. I really do. There's a lot of that, and that's the one that I just don't get. Do you pay? I don't know how much the bloke's on. I have no idea.
No.
But whatever he's on, it looks like money that you don't need to spend. I don't get it. But maybe there will be. I'm sure there's reasons to it.
I'm just laughing because we said we were going to try and stick to 45 minutes on this video. We've literally spent 5 minutes talking about Mark Gillespie, who doesn't matter.
Matters to Eddie Howe in Newcastle.
It does.
Yeah.
That's the keeper, isn't it?
Vlachodimos.
Yeah, Vlachodimos.
Oh God, I forgot about him. I bet Newcastle United wish they could forget about him as well.
I think you loan him out because, as you pointed out in the last video, you can't really sell him because you're not going to make your money back. He's only been at the club for a year. In PSR terms, if you sold him at a loss, it would be a disaster on the books.
Yes.
So I think loan him out. He's a quality. He has a level, and it's higher than being Newcastle's fourth choice goalkeeper.
So let's talk about it in a little bit more depth, because there might be people out there still thinking, even though we know this, in layman's terms, they bought him for £20 million.
Yes.
I don't know what his contract is, but say it was a 5-year contract, he's only going to come down incrementally. His value on the books in a PSR term, so he's done a year in a 5-year, he's probably worth about 16 million. So unless Newcastle United sold him this summer for 16 million, they're going to make a big loss on him, which comes off the PSR headroom that they worked so hard to build up in not signing players and getting rid of Miguel Almiron and Lloyd Kelly. So all of a sudden you wipe out the whole fee for Lloyd Kelly by just getting rid of him at a loss, because let's be realistic, there isn't a football club on the planet going to be mad enough unless there's a PSR problem. And that's what I was sort of hinting at the last video, that unless there's something clever going to go on, they're probably stuck with a bloke, sadly. And he's not a bad goalkeeper, again, it's not personal.
Exactly, yeah.
I think he's got a lot of good qualities. I quite like him as a keeper. But Eddie Howe's doing the manager thing. He didn't sign him, he didn't told him, he's not really interested in playing him. Probably doesn't have any problem with him at all, but it wasn't his deal and he's not part of plans.
Do you reckon there's some people screening the TV now suggesting that one of PIF's Saudi Arabia clubs should come in and buy him, because, as we should put out there, that's just not going to happen. It's not the way they operate.
Well, it depends.
It's separate.
You always have to have a player who wants to go there.
Yeah.
We've just seen a really high profile one in Bruno Fernandes. The Saudis can want all they want and put as much money down as they want, but it doesn't mean a player wants to go there. So, we're talking about human beings here with families, things like that. You're not always necessarily going to want to go and just chase the Saudi petrodollar. I mean, it wouldn't stop me, being honest.
No. But
It's a different world, though, isn't it?
It is a different world where we're a lot smaller margins around these parts than what he is, I'd imagine.
I don't think Odyssey's Vakademos fits the high profile of the Saudi Pro League one, because you just mentioned Bruno Fernandes there. I don't think, I know he's got Champions League experience, Odyssey's Vakademos is in the same bracket.
No, he's not, but I could see it, but there's got to be a want there.
It might not be the big four, it might be like Martin Dubravka, Al-Shabaab type situation where...
Yeah.
But I'd loan him out. I think he deserves a loan. He deserves to be playing football, and yeah, he's better than being Newcastle's fourth choice goalkeeper or even third choice goalkeeper, which is what he is heading into the new season.
Emi Martinez as an understudy on June the 30th would be quite a nice treat, wouldn't it? We could do something there.
Yeah.
Or he ends up back at the City ground.
You never know.
A few players there, aren't there?
Yes.
Which will come on.
Yeah, do you want to move on to the defenders?
Let's go for it.
Okay.
We'll go full backs then centre halves.
Okay. So Kieran Trippier, always a big talking point over him.
Yes. Do you want to start on him?
Keep. I would keep him, yeah. Unless there's money on the table, and I mean 15 million for a player in the last year of his contract, potentially. But right now, and I know he's probably one of the bigger earners, I don't see any real need to get rid of him. I think maybe from the player side, there's potentially he might want to go. Latter years of his
Mate,
career.
you don't have to qualify. You know he wants to go.
Yeah.
Just say it.
But I think Newcastle to keep him as. I mean, if you lose him there, you're back in a right back situation of Dean Livramento and Emil Kraft.
Yeah.
I just think you lose a lot of depth. I just think Kieran Trippier for how long he's got left on his contract and what he's worth to Newcastle, I just don't think there's really, unless there's proper money on the table, a reason to get rid of him.
Yeah, there's no footballing reason for me to get rid of Kieran Trippier. I think he's good experience. However, I think it's about one thing that Howe, obviously I said there's a lot of reliance on squad balance and morale, etc., and building the right kind of squad. I think there has to be question marks about whether Kieran Trippier is a part of that. And if he is a part of that, then he's an absolute no-brainer to keep for me. He's quality, and he showed that. I mean, that performance in the Carabao Cup final, go up there was one of the best individual performances.
And in the semi-final second leg as well, he was excellent.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. A cool, calm operator at the back four. He was limping from about the 35th minute, and he still did the full game. He was absolutely outstanding. And you'd hope you're not going to need that from much, but you'll be able to bring him in. You know, if the other two, who it's probably not really worth going too much into, Livramento and Hall, if one of them gets injured, he'll cover either side, or he'll switch with Livramento and he'll play right. If they both get injured, he'll play left and Kraft will play right. He just adds so much to the squad.
Yes, I agree. The only reservations I have about Kieran Trippier is, going into next season, he will be probably second choice right back behind Tino Livramento, and Kieran Trippier coming in from the cold, bit like Nick Pope, takes a few games to get going. We saw certainly this season when he's just coming in for the odd game, he's looking like the 34, 35-year-old defender right back he is. Whereas when he got a good run of games, February, March time leading into the cup final, he was excellent. We saw the return of the Kieran Trippier we know. On
Trippier, I think what we're seeing is when he first signed, he was of a remarkably consistent level. His levels never dropped. And he had that for about a year, maybe a little bit longer. Then I think what we're seeing now is he's sort of aging, and the age is maybe showing a little bit more. Is he 34?
34. 35 in September?
35 in September. I think we're seeing more of rather than a really high consistent level, you're seeing some highs and lows. So for every Carabao Cup final, there's Man City away. Like there's bigger dips than we've ever seen, but I don't think that really, the quality that he brings, I think it's a no-brainer.
Champions League now as well. I could go back to AC Milan, Newcastle's first game. He was the best player on the park that day at right back, and then moved over to left back even. He was excellent. So games like that, I think he'll become a really
Nick
useful player.
Pope might have an argument with you there.
I think we argued that in
Did
our
we?
video,
Did
if
we?
you go back, who was the best player. Because I said Nick Pope made no saves that you wouldn't expect him to make, and,
Right.
and that was viewed as a controversial take.
Aye, I do remember that actually, but he was great in Paris as well.
Yes. So, do you want to touch on your Lewis Halls, Tino Livermentos sticking on the fullbacks?
Sell.
Well, Tino's an interesting one because there's
Yeah.
been interest there from Manchester City.
No, I didn't sell him there.
I think it sends all the wrong messages if you sell a player that he had his ups and downs last season. It wasn't a perfect season, but what we always said here was you've got to stick with a lad. He probably needed at times taken out and be someone else like Trippier to come in, but the team never allowed for that. But he's a class operator, and you can see why. I've said that on the video in here before, that if he can add consistent end product to his game on the right, he's not a left back. If he can add consistent end product on the right hand side to his game, there aren't going to be many better in the years to come in world football. He's up there. He's going to be the best English one. So you look at somebody like in an England setup, you look at Reece James. Like Reece James is the standout right back that England have had for years, but the bloke can't get fit. But what he has is end product. Like literally, he's quality. He can score free kicks. He can cross. He can belt them in from distance. Newcastle have felt that years back. He scored two at the Leeds end, didn't he?
Yeah.
That's what Livermento's got all the rest of it. He's got the physical and he's robust and he plays games, but it's just adding that end product. And if he does that, I think I want to see him try to add that in Newcastle. I would feel like it was unfinished business if he left. I feel like he's got a lot higher ceiling. And it's the same for Lewis Hall. I'll just say my thoughts on Lewis Hall. I think he's absolutely brilliant. I absolutely love Lewis Hall.
He's almost like the opposite of Tino in some ways, where technically Lewis Hall, we were talking about going on off on a tangent as we do. You're talking about Lewis Skelly at left back for England.
Can it lace his boots? I said that last night. Didn't I?
Far and away.
Honestly, can it lace his boots? We watched again. It's this limited view that we'll watch a few games on Sky. We'll all do it.
We've seen Arsenal play a few times,
and I've seen him every time and not rated him once. And obviously there's a lot of hype around the player. He's a young lad, and it is another one where he's a midfielder playing at full back, so he might have to learn the position a bit more, but just doesn't look quite like it fits to me. And I say Lewis Hall, who in his first season looked like a midfielder playing at full back, had to learn the position, had to take time to learn what he should do and what he shouldn't do, when he shouldn't in this team. And really at the start of this season, he was my player of the season. And I think people are sleeping on how good Lewis Hall is because we haven't seen him for a while. It's the recency bias thing. Like you kind of forget about players sometimes when they're not in the team does well. But Lewis Hall takes this. Lewis Hall and Tonali this season are the two players that negated the fact Newcastle United didn't sign any players.
Yeah, two new signings.
They were the old Pardew saying. They were the two new signings that you didn't even know we had. And they levelled the team up this season, so I'll hope that'll continue next.
Yes.
Can't argue any of that.
I know, we're going to have to disagree at some point.
Yeah.
He has one.
I'm not sure. I don't know. We will. I'm sure.
Well, sticking on the fullbacks.
Yeah.
Emil Kraft and Matt Target. What are you thinking? Who are sort of the second and third choice.
I just seen the Chronicle saying that Crystal Palace are going to take Mark Gay. We're going to take Matt Target and a Mark Gay deal.
It's like for like.
A little bit fanciful, that isn't it?
So it's 50 million with Matt Target and 50 million without Matt Target. Literally, that just makes there's no waste. Look, honestly, I hope I'm wrong, but I can't see a logic why Crystal Palace would want Matt Target as a knockoff price on Mark Gay's money on his price tag. That doesn't make sense. Matt Target has played 2 Premier League games in a year. He hasn't started a Premier League game for, I think, more than that.
The slowest man in Newcastle United squad, considering Oliver Glasner plays the 5 at the back with that Munez on one side and Mitchell on the other, who are 2 fit lads who get up and down all day. I'm sorry, but where the hell's Matt Target for this team? Even as a backup, you put Matt Target at that left back position, he would look like a fish out of water in that Palace team. That does not fit.
He's had a lot of injuries. He hasn't played a lot of football since actually joined the club permanently.
He is statistically the slowest man in the squad as well.
It is in.
Yes.
Yeah, the actual stats.
He just doesn't play games. Doesn't play games.
I
He would
think
go there and probably pick
Southampton's probably his back to his
back to
roots.
South Coast,
Championship.
Yeah. And he'd be all right because he's been, you know what? At the end of the day, when they signed him, that loan signing, he was excellent.
No, he took the team.
His output was brilliant.
Level on
it was
side.
probably because he was replacing Matt Ritchie, so it was a levelling up in many ways, and that wasn't a fault on Ritchie, but he was never a left back.
No.
He was an attack-minded, right-sided player, and having to play left back because he was left-footed. So it was obviously going to be a levelling up. Then that's probably the signing you look at to say they're getting the least value of money out of, having paid that money for him in the summer. But at the time, I find it hard to argue, it was a no-brainer to go and get that deal done.
It was.
Because he played really well for them. And it was a placeholder, Dan Burn deal, where it was like, he'll do a job for now.
Materialised as you'd probably
as expected, yeah. I think they probably hoped they could have flipped him on by now.
Because he wasn't very old when he signed, now he's 29.
Yeah, I think they're gonna have to just try and that's the job of the non-existent directors, is that they're gonna have to find deals for these players. It makes no financial sense when Newcastle United be hanging on to them. And I can't remember what they paid for Matt Target. It was about 15
on a decent chunk as well.
So if you're not going to make a PSR loss, what you're going to have to, I don't know, probably have to get 4 or 5 million from it.
1 year left on his contract.
Is he 1 year?
I think
you're right. Well, they'll have to try and find a way of shifting him on. Another PSR swindle, hopefully. If they can take advantage of somebody somewhere. Just put a job lot in. You can have Lacademos, Matt Target.
it's so stupid.
Joe Willock. Oh, we're not on the midfielders
We're
yet.
not on that yet. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page on Matt Target. We're all on the same page on Emil Kraft.
Emil Kraft's a revelation.
You might have said Sterling last summer.
Oh, I could not see any value in keeping Emil Kraft at the football club. I think it's a no-brainer for him not to stay at the football club now. Offers cover in the centre, cover it right. He's got the fitness of like a middle distance runner. He's up and down all day. He's physical. He give you 100% like a Labrador. He's spot on. I think he's spot on. And he's good mates with Isak behind the scenes, the Sweden connection. And his missus seems to be getting on really well with Tonali's missus, so it all just kind of keeps things
from the one correspondent wife himself.
It keeps things all connected.
He lives just over.
Does he? No, but there's a little clique behind the scenes, obviously, when you see it on the social media and things. And you know, if we're talking about squad balance, and I think he's a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer.
I agree.
I also agree.
He's just a player who can come in for the odd game and do a 7 out of 10 performance, which is what Newcastle need. So yeah, moving into centre-backs.
Yeah.
We've got to disagree at some point, but centre-backs. Start with, I guess, Sven Botman.
Sven Botman, keep. Fabian Schär, keep. Dan Burn, absolutely keep. He's established themselves, in my opinion, in this team as the number one centre-half. I don't think that in terms of ability. Sven Botman's definitely got more ability, and so does Fabian Schär with the ball. But I think because of everything, the whole package that he brings to the team, Dan Burn is the number one centre-half. Doesn't mean I think he should play for England, by the way, but that's another argument altogether. Who else?
There's Jamal Lascelles.
Jamal Lascelles, again, is a no-brainer to keep for me, unless he can make some money off him. That's a no-brainer. But if somebody wanted him, I think you'd really have to consider letting him go. And that's it, isn't it? They need to sign another one. So that's what we'll come on to. What do you think?
If I was to sell any of them, it would be Jamal Lascelles. I just hasn't played a Premier League game in over a year. Injuries. He's obviously an important player behind the scenes, but it's getting a bit like a Mark Gillespie situation, except Jamal Lascelles can come into the side and do a job, as we've seen previously. I think we'll probably get onto it in the second half. I just think Jamal Lascelles is a player who, left on his contract, he's 31, 32, still holds a little bit of value, and I think you could maybe recoup that.
I don't think you get much for a lad. That's the only thing. I don't think you get much for somebody who hasn't played for a year.
No, but
18 months.
He has a particular value to Nottingham Forest, so
which will come on to.
It's very, very niche. I'm just thinking, if you're wanting to do deals with Nottingham Forest, where it looks like Newcastle are open to that and have done deals with Forest previously, Jamal Lascelles, club-trained Nottingham Forest player. Nottingham Forest need club-trained players for Europe. I think something could be done there. That's what I'm hinting at. So I think Jamal Lascelles I would sell, and then you bring a player.
What's your view on the centre-halves?
I would keep Jamal Lascelles unless for your reason that if someone actually wanted them, but I think it's tough for him because he's been out for a year. I think probably Newcastle now probably owe him some degree of loyalty as well. If he can't find another club, then stick by him. I don't think you'll get many games next year after they go and bring him in right side centre half, because then you'll have centre half A who they bring in, and then you'll Kraft on the right side, and then obviously you've got Dan Burn and Sven Botman. Unless maybe if there's injuries in there, but no, I would keep him unless there was an offer, which I don't think there would be, unless maybe the Nottingham Forest situation, which we'll get on in.
Yeah, which comes from no basis of knowledge, by the way. It's just a theory. Just before we go on to the midfielders, you've got your young lads, if you like, your Harrison Ashbys, your Alex Murphys, your Leo Sahars. What are you doing with them?
I think it's a season where Sahar stays around the first team and continues to grow. Everything I've heard from the youth side of things, they say really positive things about him. Almost like a little bit of it's slightly different, but a bit of a Trippier regen in some ways in terms of his output, etc. A bit small, a bit slight, but I think grow into it. The other one's Ashby, probably for the bin, in the politest possible manner. I think that was a sign that it hasn't worked, and it won't work. They're not going to be keeping him around.
24 next season.
And who was the other one? Alex Murphy. I think the jury's out on Alex Murphy. Whenever I've seen him, I've liked the look of him, but I'm not 100% certain that Bolton loan particularly went that well.
Mixed reports.
Yeah, I don't think it went that well, but sometimes first loans are like that, and you need that.
He's only 20. Exactly.
So it's probably back out on loan, and that's the defining season for Alex Murphy. Does he come back in the Sean Longstaff or Elliot Anderson mould, or does he come back in the Harrison Ashby mould? I think that's the next season will probably decide that.
Moving on to the midfield. So yeah, Joe Linton. I think we could get through this midfield quite quick.
The midfield's easy.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably two sticking points. So I think we all, shout out if you disagree, we all absolutely lock Bruno, Tonali and Joe Linton in a cupboard, and nobody's getting anywhere near them.
Yes.
I think that's pretty clear.
That's the midfield three, really, isn't it?
Yeah. But I would hope to try and improve parts of that midfield for certain other games, which we'll come on to. The other two, Joe Willock and Sean Longstaff, what's your thoughts?
I would sell both.
Would you?
Yes. Sean Longstaff just totally fell down the pecking order last season. Wasn't even getting off the bench in the second half of the season.
Miley as well.
Miley will come on to him.
Yeah.
But no, Longstaff, I just think the teams went past him a little bit, unfortunately, and then sort of the PSR value, it's the homegrown, pure profit thing to look at as well. So, and I think the way Eddie Howe was speaking back end of last season, how open he was on Sean Longstaff's future, I think that was a hint that the player wants to go as well. And then Joe Willock, for me, I'm just not seeing it with Joe Willock. I think the Champions League season he was good. I mean, he found a really good partnership down the left hand side with Joe Linton. But without Joe Linton down that left hand side, Joe Willock has not really found a place since coming back from injury, in my opinion. A lot of pace, a great athlete, but just lacks a real final product. And I just think cut your losses with if that's what you want to. But I just think I think he should go.
I remember there was some talk a while back about Joe Willock. I can't remember if it was written somewhere or it was said by somebody in another video or whatever, but there was a lot of talk about Newcastle United need a top-end Joe Willock playing, and he makes a lot of things tick. It might have been 18 months ago, so it looks like the most
he was a better player when he was injured.
lunatic take I've ever seen.
Yeah. People thought him as a better player when he was injured.
I'm not against it. He's a player to me who, when he leaves, goes to the bottom end of the Premier League. This team is well left him behind. I think when they signed him for 25 million, it was a desperation signing because they weren't getting anybody else. That was what that was. He was never worth the money they paid for him. He's never repaid the money he's been worth. He's never been consistent enough. He's never been fit enough. And I think he drifts. Even when he's been fit and picked every single week, he drifts in out of games. He's a good athlete, no doubt about it, and can produce the odd moment of magic, but does it very fleetingly.
Yes.
And I think Newcastle United as a squad need more than that. They need a player who's a lot more consistent than Joe Willock, and I think he'll go away and he'll do all right somewhere else. Could go to Fulham and probably flit in and out of their team. Go to Crystal Palace, flit in and out of their team.
Could be,
you know what I mean? Like it's the London connection. Probably go back down there. But that's your level you're pitching him at. I'm going to be honest. I don't think it's.
Yeah, when he has come into the team towards the back end of the season, when Joe Linton was injured and things like that, you just saw the drop off in quality where you've got Bruno and Tonali, who are real technical operators who try to get forward while they can. Joe Willock is just an athlete, really. He doesn't really have a football brain, in my opinion, and in the final third just lacks. We saw against Arsenal, I've never seen a player run the ball out of play so much on the byline. He just
do you mean in general? Because he does it a lot.
Yeah. Just
not just that game.
Yeah, I was just using that as an example because he gets in good areas. He's got good movement and things like that, and obviously he's quick, so he does see a lot of the ball as well and can carry it well. It's just the decision making, the final passing. So many times this season I've seen Joe Willock and it's like, that's like me at the Walker Dome, just head down, bang, trying to do something.
I'm at a point with Joe Willock, I can't
thinking.
get frustrated. When it used to frustrate the life, it was when he would run the ball out of play. Like when he's done it recently, it's just like, I don't expect any difference. Like that's what he is.
It was that Brighton game away at the back end of last season that summed up for me, where he was so involved, but his final product just wasn't there. And I just think if you've got a player that's great, having a great athlete, but he doesn't deliver on the box, and what's the point? Yeah. And I just think since coming back from injury, I probably handpick the amount of games that he's played well in. I just don't think he's ever really stood out. So for me, I just think if you can get to sick and good money for him, then I don't think Newcastle will be missing out if they lost them.
Yeah, his only good games have been in the Cup. Birmingham, Chelsea and Forest, but then he got injured after 15 minutes against Forest.
There's been fleeting glances, some great contributions at times, but never a consistent.
They mostly paid the £25 million from at the time because he just went and scored 9 goals in 9 games or whatever on loan. He's never looked like scoring goals consistently.
Anyone who watched that would know what Joe Willock was.
Steve Bruce knew because he was bringing him off the bench for half of those goals. He still wasn't a starter in that run all the time. He did start a lot of those games, but he was quite often an impact sub. And I think that's what he's only ever really looked like.
Yeah. I thought it was telling actually when Champions League celebrations happened, he was one of the players who stepped away and didn't really celebrate as well.
Did he?
Yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, sell Joe Willock. I think you get maybe a 20 million if you're lucky for Joe Willock. Then Sean Longstaff. You have to sell Sean Longstaff this summer. You absolutely have to because you'll lose him for free next summer. He's not going to sign a new contract. Open to leaving. Eddie Howe's spoken about it. Sean Longstaff's spoken about it. PSR with a club trained player, with a academy product, pure profit, get rid. And that's no disrespect to Sean Longstaff. I think it's a move that just works for all parties to sell him.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. I'd definitely sell Willock. Longstaff possibly ticks more boxes and keeping around, but I don't think he added anything. He didn't. Last season, the season before, he scored goals. He played a lot of games. I think he looks like a player. I said it in a video a few weeks ago, might be at Arsenal. I think the team is leaving behind some of these players, and that's all right. That's just natural progression in football. It happens. But I might have kept him in my squad builder.
Oh, so you're keeping him?
I'm going to get stick with this because Liam loves Sean Longstaff. But there's reasons behind it.
Yeah. Okay. So Jordan, are you keeping or selling?
No, I was sell.
I'll sell both. In an ideal world, I'll sell both.
Right. But you're thinking more
strategic.
Okay. And Lewis Miley, which is an interesting one because he's in a similar boat in some respects as an academy player to Sean Longstaff, but is moved ahead of Sean Longstaff in the pecking order. He was getting on more often. He's obviously a lot younger and shown quite a bit of promise at times. Hasn't quite had the season he had last season, just based on circumstance really. The likes of Tonali coming back, Joe Linton coming back from injury, but what you're doing with Lewis Miley?
Keep. I think it's a no-brainer to keep. No, I think Newcastle need the bodies.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that again people are maybe just sort of letting pass by, but they're actually a bit short in midfield. You take any one of those 3 players out, and suddenly the team doesn't function the way they did before. Now you're always going to get that when you've got quality players and not the same in backup, but they need to sort of keep the levels up, and I think Miley's a level above the other 2. Different profile of player. Willock is more of a proper attacking midfielder, whereas I think Miley transitions into a holding midfielder because of his size, and he sees the game in front of him. And that's why I want to see more from him in this season. I know I can imagine, we know that he was frustrated by not getting enough games last season. He kind of complained when the players who were in front of him, being brutally honest, and that needs to be a realisation on his part that it's not an issue that in his game as to why he's not playing. It's because he's got he's got what many people outside of Newcastle argue is the best midfield in the country. So how the hell do you expect to get in that midfield? Just need to be patient, needs to keep doing the right things, keep going in the right direction, and I think he's got a reasonably bright future ahead of him. Look, he's not perfect, but I still see a lot of room for improvement in his game. I like to see him impact games. I don't want to see him come into games like I think we saw a lot last season, and it might be a confidence thing, I don't know. A lot of times it was safe, it was play everything safe, and the games he didn't play everything safe in was like the FA Cup game where he played St James and scored, where it was like, and it was lower opposition, but it was just maybe that confidence thing, seeing everything in front of him, because he can score a goal, he can thread a pass. When he was coming on in the Premier League, it was all 5 yards backwards and sideways to the fullback, and it's like, I think you're better than that, son. Now go and show it.
Yeah, big season for him next year. Obviously, the extra European games, you suspect he would get more games, so maybe in 12 months' time, if we're not seeing it, a different conversation, but I do think he's still only young, big potential. Stick with him, develop him, and then see where he is in 12 months' time.
I agree. I think it's one of those with Lewis Miley where if you want to make a bit of money, you probably could. His value now is quite high. If he gets another season where he doesn't really do much, like a repeat of last season, although I think he scored twice in 4 starts, so a decent return, but only 4 starts. If he has another season like that, then his value maybe starts to plateau or dip slightly at 19, 20, so
he's going to play more games though. I mean,
I think Jordan's right with the Champions League and
8 more games.
And
he's
obviously the cup games as well. You've won the Carabao Cup now. Does your almost mentality change to that competition?
Newcastle's squad even the squads we've built, I think we'll all agree, possibly, it still does not look strong enough to compete
on multiple.
It's still not a Chelsea 2-11s or Aston Villa strength and depth. That's where Newcastle go on a tangent. It's not it. And they can have a good window this summer and still not have that depth.
Yes, we're still, and I'm just. This is a tangent. I'm just so fed up with this cycle, this PSR cycle. You literally get to a point where you think, oh, you can spend. But then you realise very quickly that if there's a significant spend this summer, it just cripples them for the rest, the next season and the next window. And the reliance, there is an absolute harsh reality that Newcastle United need to sell players. The easiest way to do it is sell one big one, and then it almost gives you room for the next couple. Yeah. If you keep trying to do it the way they're doing it, which is the right way in my opinion, because I don't think Newcastle have enough quality now to really start cherry picking some of those out and trying to regenerate. But I think it's just frustrating, really frustrating. The cycle that English football is in at the moment. It's not none of this European football. I suppose it's all the protectionism crap, isn't it? But it's not the football I know. I've never, in all my years from being this high, like watching football and seeing players signed, and not once did anybody ever talk about like, oh, we can't do that for this reason. Well, no, you've either got the money or you haven't. If you haven't got the money, you can't spend it. And it's only now has it's really started to bite, and it's too coincidental for. I'm not a tinfoil hat nutter, but like it's too coincidental. It genuinely is built. This is a structure and a framework built to severely limit,
ambitious
and
football
protect. Exactly, it's to protect the established.
Look at Chelsea this summer again. Chelsea going out and spending money like it's out of fashion again.
Because they sold the women's team.
Manchester United.
Oh, sorry. He's not going to. Told Bo he's not going to come and sue us. It feels criminal. Like it literally does.
Well, it's just crap little loopholes that the Premier League aren't shutting either. I'll tell you now, right? And this might seem biased. If Newcastle go and do crap like that, it's closed tomorrow. It happened with the Associated Party rules. As soon as Newcastle got taken over by the Saudis, you can't do that.
Oh no.
It's like, yeah. I was going to stop going on a rant there. But
go. This is your platform.
Need Keith Patterson back on.
We do. Keith, you watch this, so yeah, we could do with Keith on. We love Keith, friend of the show.
Aye. So, Still on midfielders, somewhat. But
Keith can play. Keith, you can do a job in midfield.
So the sort of young lads / players who are way out of the first team squad. You've got Joe White, Alfie Harrison, Travis Hearns, and obviously Isaac Hayden, still contracted for another year. What are you doing with those four?
I want to see a big campaign from Alfie Harrison. I do actually.
Right.
I do. Does that sound silly?
And I thought you were going to start taking them.
Like you were advocating him to come straight in the first.
I was expecting you to say
No,
Isaac
no,
Hayden as Newcastle United's reborn number 6.
We're releasing Isaac Hayden before you're getting rid of him in some way, shape or form, are we?
Obviously, yes. However, just get the lad some games.
Yeah.
He doesn't deserve this.
He doesn't.
He doesn't deserve this at all, does he? He's a top pro, top professional, but you know, there's always question marks about whether he could operate as a midfielder at Premier League level, even when he was operating at a Premier League level as a midfielder. So no, but the lad deserves better than that. You know, he was a good servant when they needed him, good player.
Been saying that for 3 years. Still
Exactly.
contracted.
But he only signed a new one.
It was a really long
6 year
one,
deal,
wasn't it,
wasn't it?
before the takeover.
6 year deal, Jacob Murphy or something at the time. I think.
It felt mad at the time. To be fair, Murphy's actually
Right, he has,
done the job, hasn't he? Well, the others, no, I wasn't taking the mick by Alfie Harrison. I've seen a fair bit. You guys know Hugo as well sometimes with 21s and things like that, and I've seen a fair bit of him the last couple of years. And a very good technical footballer. And just from the pictures that you see and things like that, he's obviously been in and around the first team, possibly just being the extra man and things like that, like as they do. But you're not brought in unless there's something that the coach and staff see about you. A very, very good technical footballer. And you know what? In some ways, if he was a bit more physically robust, that's his issue, is that doesn't look physically robust enough to me. Don't have to be. You know, you see certain players have done a great job at a top level, you know, like David Silva or people like that, who maybe aren't physically robust but can operate at that level. I wouldn't say like a Bruno Fernandes is the most physically robust looking player, except he blew over in the wind half the time. But these type of players can make it. It's not saying he can't. But I'd like to see him beef up, chunk up a bit, become a bit more physically robust. It might be a loan away that does that for him. I wouldn't expect a lot from that loan. As was said by Alex Murphy, first loans, ask any manager who's operated at any level. You've operated non-league level, you non-league, lower league. I've covered teams in non-league, lower league. A lot of managers you speak to at that level say, like, literally you don't want to sign a player on a first loan because it's always a bit of a disaster. So I kind of work on that idea that a first loan, he probably needs that first 3 months somewhere, then go and get another 3 months somewhere else. But I think there's a player there, and reports, I haven't seen a lot of them recently, but reports I've heard from in and around the 21s recently suggest he's been really, really good. So I'm interested. That's what more I'd expect a big season. I'm intrigued by what.
Keep an eye on him.
Yeah, I'm going to keep an eye on him.
I've liked what I've seen of him. I'm just wonder, does he play in a position that doesn't lend itself that well to Newcastle?
They've been putting him in the left. They've been putting him in the Joe Linton position. He's not a Joe Linton player, but they've put him in that left midfield role.
Yeah.
Or he can play.
He likes
one
to
of the
sit.
three, can't he,
Yeah.
up front?
We'll see with him. 20 next season, or 20 now, so big season ahead. I think you're right. Joe White's an interesting one though, because he's had a loan spell at MK Dons. By all accounts, a very good loan spell. He's 23.
He scored some great goals.
23 later this year. Would take up a place in not only the Champions League squad, but the Premier League squad. League 2 experience is sort of his limit at the moment, at 22. So what are you doing with him?
I have no idea.
I'll start.
No idea.
I would keep him.
Right.
As that sort of 25th man.
Yeah.
As a club trained player as well. Has that, not that he's ever going to play an awful lot in the Champions
It's a
League.
disaster if it comes to the Bernabeu and Joe White's having to come in, isn't it?
It's
But
better.
he's not a bad
it's
player.
better than Michael Ndoueni and
yes.
players like
Levels.
that.
There's levels to this game.
Joe White is a League 1, top end League 2, League 1 player based on what we've seen. Same as Elliot Anderson when he came back. A little bit older, Joe White. I just think you keep him around for a year as that 25th man. Train him with the first team. we've seen him in Premier League action before, and I mean, he's a tidy player.
He's a tidy player. Is he not another player who, it seems to be a Newcastle United academy thing, but is he not another player who lacks a yard?
I mean, there was that Bournemouth. Was it Bournemouth when the
Bournemouth,
he came on and he had a good impression, but he's never really
Chelsea
used after.
came on and did well.
I like him. That's why I'm saying I don't know what you do. I like him, but
I'd keep hold of him, because how much are you going to get for a player who's been out on loan in League Two?
I just look at a player.
I'd be surprised I kept hold of him.
He's nearly 23. I think he's probably got to go. But
I
do like him.
I think they're waiting to try and move him on. And well, that's $1 million. I'll just try and get rid of him. You look at Joe White, and no disrespect to Joe White. We had a conversation about Newcastle having the best midfield in the country. How's Joe White going to get in that? Right hand, left hand side, you've got big players in there. It's impossible for him to get in the team.
Yeah,
it is. I mean, I just think.
But he's a body, isn't he?
But it's at the detriment of the player as well. If it's like, well, actually, we'll just keep you around for a year and you can just be a 25th man in the Champions League squad and probably not play. If I was him, I'd be like, I didn't want that. Although I'd love to sit on the bench at the Parc de France. You know what I mean? So
you qualified for the homegrown, wouldn't you?
Not club trade.
Not club trade. You went to Forest Hall.
Is that the team? Is that the official team? Is it?
No, I'd keep hold of it. I'm interested to see. I think you give him a pre-season, because I think he's technically a very good player. Eye for goal, scored quite a few goals from midfield for MK Dons. Look, I'm not trying to sell this lad as some sort of transformative sign. I just think as he raises the bar slightly of turn into academy players to be that bench option, and I think what harm does it do for a year? He gives you an extra body in terms of Champions League as well.
Yeah, I can't argue with it. I just don't know. I think that's
the
one
jury
of those.
Is out.
It's a flip of a coin. I've always quite liked the player, but I mean, he might want to go. He might want to go and play games.
Yeah.
He might taste this and think, I'm not going to go and sit there and not play games again.
Probably view himself as a League One bottom end Championship player.
Probably thinks, what's my next step?
Yeah.
And is my next step again just going and being a training ground player?
But players that can drop in the leagues and work their way back. We might go to an ambitious League One club and find themselves in the Championship in 12 months' time.
I think
there's been examples of that.
You make a player, definitely make a player, and I you know what, I'd hope we'll beat Newcastle, because I do like them, but I just think
it's too old again.
Old now,
getting in age. I think you probably would know by now.
Yeah. And
if we don't, then probably not.
Moving on to the attackers now.
Yeah.
Callum Wilson, we're releasing him.
But I think the attackers is dead easy. So I think we can wrap. There's only 3 of them.
Alright.
So no, with the wingers as well.
Okay, I'll show you the list I've got. Where it's Callum Wilson, Alexander Isak, Will Asula, Gavan Kwol.
Oh, Dom, we're getting too.
We've just spent 5 minutes.
I know
we're
getting too stuck into Gillespie and right. So I'm going to tell you what I think of the forward line.
Okay.
I'm keeping Gordon at all costs. I think he adds pace and direct running that I think is hard to replace, and a bit of quality on the end. I really like Anthony Gordon. Obviously, we know there's problems with it. Who knows? We'll see where it goes. But I would try and keep him at all costs. I'd be looking for a buyer for Harvey Barnes, no doubt about it for me. I would be. You keep Jacob Murphy because his value to the squad is invaluable. I think you can't put a value on what he brings. But I would hope he wasn't a starter next season. Alexander Isak's a no-brainer. Will Asula for me is a bit of a no-brainer as well. I want to keep him around. And Callum Wilson again is the biggest no-brainer. I think he's got to go. I think his time's come and it's game over. The rest, Gavan Kwol, I think Eddie Howe's clearly took a look at him and doesn't fancy him, so that to me is enough of a judgment to say you're going to have to get rid of him. He's not going to want to sit playing 23s football for very long, and there isn't anybody else. Is that Ben Parkinson will have a career somewhere? It's not going to be Newcastle United. And Sean Neve's just a kid, so there you are.
I think you've summed it up well.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't disagree. I think we've said previously.
I think Harvey Barnes, a content just one that maybe people.
Oh no, Harvey Barnes, I'd keep Harvey Barnes because I think. Look, back end of the season when Newcastle's performance levels dipped slightly, I thought Harvey Barnes was one of those players whose performance levels dipped. He gets dragged around a bit though. Like Anthony Gordon's back fit, he's told to play on the right and he's told to play back on the left. He's moved out. We saw when Harvey Barnes got a consistent run of games on the left wing, he he's solid. He gives you goals. There's probably few better finishers in the squad, or few better finishers in the Premier League in his position.
Oh, he's a great finisher.
So I think there's sort of merits to keeping Harvey Barnes around. And are you going to recoup the money you paid for it? Possibly not, unless you do some PSR gymnastics. I'd keep Harvey Barnes, keep Anthony Gordon, Alexander Isak, yeah, Callum Wilson release. Will Asula, we spoke previously about potentially loaning him out. But I think we've, like you've said, needing bodies, and we've seen glimpses towards the back end of the season.
There's something there.
There's something, and Eddie Howe seems encouraged by what they've seen. And when you're competing on multiple fronts, I think Will Asula possibly a useful player to have around.
I'm torn Harvey Barnes because I think if there's an offer that came in from that, would probably take it. Guaranteeing that you'd go out and sign a replacement as well, because I do think obviously you lose him, you have got Anthony Gunn on the left hand side, but again you lack depth. But no, I think I've always been unsure on Harvey Barnes. Great stats man in terms of goals, assists this season as well, from that Carabao Cup final to Gordon's suspension. Excellent, but I just don't, in terms of what I like to see from Wigan, beating a man, getting you off the edge of your seat, I just don't think Harvey Barnes is quite that winger. Although again scores goals, so I'm really torn him. But if there was an offer there, I would be tempted to consider it. I really would.
What sort of fee?
So the signing for 38, I think you probably could recoup that. I think you probably could. Yeah. Scored goals last season.
Nine goals in.
I think that's what people. You look at Harvey Barnes' stats and it's incredible. But I just think we call it the eye test, and he doesn't always pass the eye test. I like to see more from him. I like the wingers to look like, to take on people. Harvey Barnes is sort of like in many ways. I know it works out for him really well sometimes. Bit of a one-trick pony, the cutting side, and if it comes off, it looks fantastic. But he's quite predictable in that sense. So again, I can't knock him because he scored goals. He played a really valuable part last season. But I just don't know. I like to see a bit more from your wingers.
It's another ideal world situation. I mean, if you're trying to build a squad, I'd probably keep him, but I think the reality of a PSR situation is if you can get some money for him and Willock, I'd be happily letting him go.
Okay.
Right, so should we go to the break?
Yes, I think we'll have to.
Ad break. Right, you've hung on this long, right? So you're going to hang on for the last 10 minutes or so while we go through our ideal signings in the transfer window. Maybe they're not even ideal. Maybe they're a bit crackers, a bit crazy, but this is how we would spend Newcastle United's money after the break, which you'll see now from our sponsors. We can write details below.
Comply IT Limited. Worrying about disposing of your old IT equipment? Don't be. Comply IT handle everything. Secure collection, detailed tracking, and certified data destruction. That's Comply IT Limited. Four Rivers Financial Planning offer holistic financial advice for all stages of life, ensuring your plan remains robust and adaptable in the ever-changing world we live in.
That was a word from our proud sponsors on the Geordie Journals. Right, we've had you here for ages. I hope you've enjoyed it, actually. We've quite enjoyed doing it. Now comes the bit of fun that we talked about. Don't hold us to this. We are not master scouts. We are not transfer negotiators. We are not part of the Howe clique. We are not speaking, these deals that we're talking about are not speaking from any knowledge or experience. We do have some knowledge and experience of what's going on in Newcastle. However, this is done as just our pure opinion. Right? You start with Jordan.
Oh,
go on.
The hospital pass.
You just saying about the Howe clique reminded me of Eddie Howe asking Jordan if he knew of any free agents.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Yeah, he did, yeah. We consider signing a free agent in Callum Wilson's absence.
If you can give me some names.
I'll come back in.
Good man.
So,
I asked if he'd
Jordan is the only person Eddie Howe has actually, of us three, Eddie Howe has asked for transfer insight. So Jordan is a good person.
Did you give him any?
No, so what I did was I'd done a path for Newcastle World photo gallery of the free agents that are available anyhow.
Answering his question.
Answering his question, yeah. But I never did send them that list.
I'm sure he would have looked at it.
Yeah. Well, there's a free agent on my list.
Click past the ads.
Yeah. Yes, no, so I'll start. So actually an easy one. So the first signing, or in terms of positions, starting from the back for me, James Trafford. A rumoured 35 million, suggestions now potentially £40 million fee for James Trafford.
We told you it wasn't going to be a home run. I wrote that story 2 weeks ago. that Nick Pope would stay and everybody else jumped on it, and that that Trafford was the one that they wanted. But he wasn't going to come at the cheap. Everyone was saying 30 million this, 30 million. I never got where this number comes from. They paid 15 for him. There's a sell on to Man City in the deal.
And now
they're not going to take 30 unless they're in financial trouble, which is what we said.
Yeah, and the fee Burnley are now asking for is getting into the region of the buyback Man City have. Not that they'd trigger that, but £40 million for the goalkeeper is starting to get a lot of money.
I just think because I've tracked him for so long, there was all the noise last summer where it was pretty much a done deal, as it said. And obviously the PSR swindle with Nottingham Forest, obviously he's like a demo school in the other direction with Anderson. I think because they've tracked him for so long, they've almost sort of laid the bed now where if they don't go and do the James Trafford deal, I think it's a little bit of a bad look. Because he's clearly the number one choice. Yeah. It's not enough for debate, he's clearly the number one choice. And if they don't go and sign him now, another alternative, which is fine, but I just think because it's so obvious that he's the number one choice, I think you've got to go and do it. And I've got a feeling, I'm just saying this is my opinion, I think that they don't go and do it within the next few weeks or so. I don't want to put a timestamp on it, but I think they don't get this deal done. I think someone like Chelsea will come and swoop in. So I've just got a feeling about them. Been suggestions that James Trafford's a Chelsea fan. Chelsea were bidding for the AC Milan goalkeeper last week. If they're looking out for a goalkeeper, James Trafford for me is probably one of the obvious choices. So I've just a little bit of fear there. If they don't go and do it, he'll go somewhere else. That's just my opinion. That's no inside knowledge, as we say. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think Jordan raises a good point. Newcastle put so much effort into this James Trafford deal. It's just the one that has to happen, like at this point. There's other goalkeepers linked with that Spanish lad who's going to Barcelona. Like, that's some route Newcastle could have explored, but clearly had no intention of doing that. So James Trafford, they've put their eggs in that basket, a bit like Mark Gay last summer. They've now worked on this deal, 2 transfer windows, just get it done.
Yes, I think they have to go and get it done. And I think in many ways the look of it is they just have to do this deal and then deal with anything after. Newcastle United are awful traders until the last transfer window. Awful traders of footballers. They have not done it well since post-takeover. And they're going to have to start doing it. If you're going to sign players and you're going to pay Premier League premiums for footballers, you're going to have to start selling footballers. Yeah. You cannot just expect to keep, having absolute panic running into transfer windows. Or the bit that I don't get is, it's just such an odd stance. You're going to have to pay a massive premium to sign our players, but we don't want to pay. We don't want to pay a premium for yours. No, we want Trafford for 30, and we want Alanga for 40, and you give a Gay for 40 as well. I'm sorry, lads. You didn't need me to tell you that. Yeah. Doesn't work like that. If you want to sign a player who that football club doesn't need to sell for a start, and also values really highly within their own system and manager and whatever it is, don't expect to rock up and say, well, we actually value it, whatever. Take my money, please. Yeah. And you suddenly expect when you get knocked back. There's a problem there. Newcastle United have done the cleverest business when they've done release clause business. That's Newcastle's best business. The money that they've paid for the likes of Isak and Bruno looks brilliant money. It's the release clause stuff Newcastle United have done really well at. And I think that's almost... They need to get a bit more clever. They need to get a bit more streetwise and street smart in the way that they go about their business. That's my major criticism on the window, the past few windows, because they didn't buy players because they couldn't buy players in terms of PSL, but that's also only telling half the story. You could have bought players if you sell players, and it's about trading. And I've said earlier in this video, I don't think they really want to take any of those players out. But if Newcastle United are going to suddenly say, we want 60 million Pedro, and we want 60 million, 50 million, 60 million Gay even, they're not going to give them away. Don't be stupid about this. They're not going to give them away. And we'll also want, whoever it was, who's the other one, Alanga, who they might turn around and say, well, no, I want 70 million quid for him. How could you quibble at that? Newcastle aren't going to take pennies for the players that they don't want to sell. But if you're going to do that, you're going to have to then accept we can't consistently keep doing that and not sell players. Or if we are going to go down that route, you can only do one. You can only probably get one of those players at a 60, 70 million premium. And that's your major sign-up for the summer. The rest you're going to have to nudge and nerdle around a little bit.
So which Premier League players are you signing?
All, look, that's the difference. That's the difference. Is that I'm not going to sit here and pretend to be one of these stato weirdos that sort of popped up over the course of the last 3 years on social media. Never mind. I'm not going to do that route again.
Expected goals conceded for goalkeepers.
No. So I'm not going to be one of these weirdos who pretend they're an absolute expert on the French league and an absolute expert on the Spanish league, whatever. I'm not. So that's not what you come here for. So I'm only looking on players I've watched regularly, players I know and I've seen in with my eyes, the eye test, as you mentioned earlier, in the flesh. Do I like the look of you? Yes, I like the look of you. So I've signed every single one of the players I've gone for is that.
Right. Okay. Because
we all agree on Trafford, by the way, before we move on.
Yes, we all said Trafford, actually.
On Trafford. I did write a note because I think Gregor Kobel from Borussia Dortmund is top of the list in terms of available goalkeepers.
If you're going to pay 40 million for a keeper, he was available, you'd probably
pay an extra
go for
10, 15.
Unbelievable.
He's an unbelievable goalkeeper, but I think that's a fantasy sign.
Right, so we're all kind of on the goalkeeper thing, and we're accepting we're going to get rid of John Ruddy because we all want to fill I think we all wanted to fill a homegrown place, didn't we? To allow for an extra outfield player.
Club trained.
You two went for
Fraser Forster.
Yeah.
Tim Krul is the goalkeeper Fraser Forster dreams he could be.
Okay.
And I'll argue that anybody.
I mean, Tim Krul broke through at Newcastle's first team ahead of Fraser Forster, so I actually agree with you in that sense.
Fraser Forster's had a better career. But,
he has.
But, I mean, honestly, Jordan, we could put a pair of gloves on ye. I worked in Scotland for 5 years, right? You could put a pair of gloves on ye and play for Celtic, and you would have kept as many clean sheets as Fraser Forster.
So you didn't hear what Lionel Messi said about Fraser Forster?
I'm not interested. I'm genuinely not interested.
I
A big
agree.
bloke, good keeper, had a good career, and if he comes in, need bother. But if I've got a choice between the two, I've said it there and I'll say it again. Fraser Forster dreams of being the goalkeeper Tim Krul was. He couldn't lace his boots in terms of a goalkeeper.
Doesn't matter because neither of them are going to get
Neither
on the
would
pitch.
play anyway. So it's all that.
Who's cheaper?
That's why I go for Tim Krul.
Okay.
Never happening, but it's all a hypothetical dream, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not that he's my dream. He's me number one. He's me dream man for the summer, Tim Krul. Right, we all agreed we're going to sign a defender. We all went for a centre half. Is that right?
Yes.
And I'll be honest, I went Pierce or Swindle. I'm attacking.
You've went the same route as me.
Have I?
You have, yeah.
I looked and thought, who can we attack towards the end of this month? And Aston Villa seems to be a potential target.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at Aston Villa's squad and say, who's the 2 or 3 players you would take out of that squad? Obviously, the goalkeeper is one because he's unbelievable. Then you look at the rest and say, well, I wouldn't really go down that route. The 2 is Rodgers and Konza are the 2 players that I would look to take if you had a blank slate. I'd take Watkins as well. Not lying about that, but again, for different reasons, I wouldn't go down that route. And I'm doing a PSR Swindle with. I'm testing the waters with Ezri Konza. He'd be the one that I would look to take. Not Jacob Ramsey, as might happen. I'd be going for Ezri Konza, and I'd be getting him. I'd be getting him to pay good money for Harvey Barnes as well, so we'd get my money back. That's kind of what I would try to look to do.
Annoyingly, I've done a similar thing. Ezri Konsa as a sort of Mark Gay alternative. I think when you look at the player Mark Gay is, Konsa is a similar sort of profile, but can also play right back as well.
Better.
He's got the versatility that Mark Gay perhaps doesn't have. Mark Gay can play either side of the centre back role, full back not so much. Whereas Ezri Konsa, a little bit older, but really solid player. And like you say, the Villa PSR situation could come a little bit cheaper.
I do like Mark Gay though. But
I wouldn't begrudge Mark Gay. I just think Ezri Konsa as a player offers as much, would be cheaper, just a little bit older.
A little bit more. I think he's got a bit more edge about him.
Better in the air.
Who are you going for? Centre half.
So I'd like both your ideas of it. If I was to go Aston Villa, Konza would be one of the ones I would pick. Obviously, you put more thought in this than I have. But I would stick with more Gay, similar to probably the Trafford deal. Have chased him for a good year and a bit, or just a year, actually not a bit. And I like Mark Gay. I think he adds a bit of pace to that back line, which they severely lack. Enough teams haven't worked out Newcastle this last season or whatever. I think it's only been Aston Villa with a long ball over the top. Man City done a proper job on them when Newcastle's defenders go a touch tight to the opposition attackers and leaves gaps in behind, Marquis got that recovery space. I don't think he's aggressive as the Fabian Schär or Dan Burn, but I think he adds that pace. He's good on the ball. So for that reason, from what I've seen watching other Premier League clubs, I think he's probably one of the standout centre-halves in the division.
Yeah, I agree. This is where it all gets a bit interesting, doesn't it? Because we all started looking and saying, how much have you spent? When I listed all of my players and probably what they would cost, it was over 200 million quid, so it was like...
Unprecedented transfer.
It was like, it's never happening. But I've talked a lot on this video about midfields and forwards and unlocking doors rather than just going for the brute force breakthrough walls, Elanga. So that's why I'm moving away from him. Although I said in the last video, I'm not his biggest fan, but I do think in an Eddie Howe team and the way that he sets it up, I think he'd be a great addition. Just a very expensive one. So, in light of that, I'm going for somebody who I'm going for two players in the forward areas who can both play what I said before, where I said in games where teams sit in two banks of five, and you probably don't need Joe Linton to establish you in the game, to be aggressive, etc. I think you need someone with a bit more finesse and a bit more able to unlock things. And I think both of these players in games like that can drop into midfield as well as playing forward roles. So I'm going to go straight to Crystal Palace, which is why I didn't go for Gay, because you're not getting them both. And I'm going for Eze. I think Eze unlocks doors galore. I really enjoy watching him as a footballer. I think he's a little bit more throwback. He can beat a man. He's exciting, and I want to see some of that. I think Newcastle lack guile. I think Bruno's the only one who really can unlock doors, and he is a different kind of player to that altogether. So I'm going Eze, and I'm going to roll the dice on James McAtee from Man City. So they're two players that I would look to sign who I think can not only fill midfield roles if needed. It's not their ideal position, but also will do the forward roles as well. They're not the blistering pace, they're not the battering down walls type that Eddie Howe does like to go for, but I just think they had a bit of guile in that final third, which I think that levels Newcastle up.
No, I think Eze is a really good one actually. Probably last St James's Park appearance you'll want to forget, but is a technically very, very, very good player.
Yeah.
I've also wrote James McAtee, but because of the value attached to him, if you can get him for 25 million, he could be an ex-Cole Palmer type situation where he can play in the middle, he can play out wide to the right, got an eye for goal. I think he's got a good goal return for Man City this past season, despite not actually getting on the pitch that much. I think in 900 minutes he's got something like 7 goals, which is a great return. Albeit
it's start to plug off the top of your head, that one, Dom.
Maybe,
you might have done some research.
Maybe.
He was up with 2 AM last night.
I was.
Got my spreadsheet now. James McAtee, I do like, 22 years old. He will be next season. So, and has the versatility. So if you're losing a Joe Willock, Sean Longstaff, I think he comes in and then can also be an option on the right. He's played there quite a few times for Man City. So I do like him. I've put Elanga, even though I said in our previous video, I don't think he necessarily raises the bar entirely off on Jacob Murphy, but is a good Eddie Howe type player, bit of pace, works hard, but then ties into what I said earlier about Jamal Lascelles. If you can do a bit of PSR swindling, Jamal Lascelles to Forest, potential attractive option. When you're looking at those crappy 8 Conference League games against no one, Jamal Lascelles is your man.
Yeah, you said before they don't have any, not in Forest on appearance.
Ryan Yates is the only one.
Ryan Yates is the only player who will be club trained, so it would tick a box for them.
So you maybe overpay on Elanga on the books. Say you can get 10 million for Jamal Lascelles on the books, PSR swindling, amortise that over 5 years. That's your Anthony Elanga one. That's the way I'm looking.
Yeah, so you've done a Forest swindle. And I've done a Villa swindle.
Yeah.
You done any swindling?
No swindles are mine. No. So I've had James McAtee in there as well. James McAtee, am I saying?
Yeah.
Jason's his brother.
Has he got a brother?
I think he's got a brother. I haven't his brother. I think on loan at like Grimsby or something. That's why I get mixed up.
You wouldn't sign him?
Sign him now.
The brothers, the McAtee brothers. So I had him as well, and then for cost purposes, now I'm in the Elanga camp. I think he'd be brilliant for Newcastle's team. Rapid, I think about that counter attack that Eddie Howe likes to play. I think he'd be brilliant, but if you're talking figures around 50 to 60 million and you've got other positions to fund, this is my thinking. Yeah, I've went for a cheaper alternative and the right forward I would go for based on cost alone would be Mariiki from Chelsea. Again, I would prefer Alanga, but I like Mariiki. Again, quick. Liked him the last couple of games for England, albeit he was playing against a very poor part-time Andorra side in Senegal. A good team actually, to be fair, but from what I've seen from Mariiki, I think he's got good traits that would do well in this team, but he's not me sole preference. As I say, Alanga's the one, but price tag has been discussed with him. He's trying to fund other positions is astronomical, really.
So that brings on to the forwards.
Yeah.
I've blown the budget because I can't unmarry my thought process from Eddie Howe's. I can't move away from João Pedro because I've spoken loads of times off all the time about how much I really rate João Pedro.
I think we disagree on that because I think he's good, but he's of a bar below what Newcastle need.
I think he's excellent. I just think he's a really talented footballer who scores goals. Double figures his last 2 seasons. I have a few penalties in there, but
very high penalty percentage, by the way.
But double figures in both seasons is good.
10 penalties.
Is it?
It's a lot. The last season, when they win Europe and he got 20 odd goals, 10 were pen. You still have to score them.
Yeah. What was Isak's?
Isak's maybe 4 or 5.
Is it?
Yeah, he scores pens. It's not. There's not a over.
Oh well, maybe not. No, I just like him as a footballer. I used to like him at Watford as well. I was really disappointed when that deal didn't go through, but there was reasons why it didn't go through, and that they were the right reasons. You wouldn't end up with Alexander Isak without him, so I can't complain too much. But I would like to see him. I'd like to see him as a player. The reason they did that, by the way, was just he wasn't seen as the senior player. I think it might be Wilson's hamstring went, and they just didn't see Pedro as a senior player to take the team on. So they needed to go and get one, and it was Eddie who put the balls in motion on that one.
Good.
Even though, contrary to regular belief out there, everyone seems to criticise Eddie Howe for not wanting to sign foreign players, etc. But it was him who chopped the Pedro deal and said, "Go great guns for Alexander Isak." So he has to take some credit for it. Plenty of people don't give him credit for much. We've been criticising for things which we just know, but you've got to give him credit for that.
He does feel that they paid a lot of money at the time for.
It was a lot of money for a player.
There was reservations.
Yeah, he scored about 6 goals the season before. So it was a risk, but it was a bloody good one.
That's what scouts are for, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, I've went a bit fantasy, but I've put another player in there, which again is unrealistic, but is interesting. He's a player who I've seen a few times this season and always like the look of him. So the first one, fantasy one, Jonathan David, free transfer, helps your budget. He is a player who will give you goals. He's probably the best available striker on the market, I'd say, at the moment. Free transfer from Lille. He's 15, 20 goals a season, if not more, in the league. What I really like about him, he doesn't miss games. I think throughout his career, he's only missed a handful of games, which is the complete, if you need a sort of anti-Callum Wilson, he's your man, except he also brings the goals.
Seen him in the Champions League a couple of times. I can't say I've got an extensive knowledge of him, but obviously you see the highlights. But I've seen him in the Champions League a couple of times, and really
hard worker,
really
eye for goal, international for Canada as well, heading into the World Cup. I think that's the one reservation. I think he probably prefer to stay on the continent, if you like, and be guaranteed starter, which is why I don't think a deal will necessarily happen. Player who I really like, who can also play on the right wing, and is just actually signed permanently for Wolves, Premier League club, Jürgen Strand-Larsen.
Okay.
Right winger, scored 14 Premier League goals, hard worker, big lad.
I'd say he's more of a forward.
He's a striker.
He's a striker, but
can
play on. He played on the right wing against Newcastle.
A lot of people write him off because he doesn't look like a player, but he's actually really good.
He impressed both times against Newcastle.
I really like him. So I'm having him as the sort of backup to Alexander Isak, but then also a player who he's a big lad but can play out wide. He's almost like a Willis Hula in some ways. Would not come cheap. He's just signed for Wolves for £25 million. Do you go to Wolves? £30 million. Yeah,
it's not going to happen. No.
So that's why it's a fantasy signing as well. But he's the profile of player that I do like the look of.
That's not bad, Joe. I quite like that one.
So we're working to a £100 million budget.
I know you've signed the player that I'm left. I have to sign because
Yeah, you have to take
Because
that
I've
advice.
blown the budget.
Yeah.
I'd have to do this signing with you, I think.
Yeah,
But
so-
I want Pedro.
Yeah, because we worked out as a £100 million budget, so James Trafford 35, 40, Mark Gee 50, Mariegi 40, McAtee 25, so that takes you quite over £100 million. I was going to recoup them funds by selling Sean Longstaff and Joe Willock, so that brings you
What
closer.
sums are you getting for them?
20 for Joe Willock and 10 for Sean Longstaff, might be a bit much, maybe a bit.
30 for the two. I
So
think
that takes you back to around about the £100 million threshold. So I've got no money left to play with.
Right.
So I'm going to have to go for a free agent. And I know people will be throwing things at the screen right now and saying absolutely no chance. But because he's a free agent, Dominic Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, I'll probably have to sign him as well because I've got now. There's nothing left.
I think a lot. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Callum Wilson are quite comparable in the sense that they both pick a lot of injuries. But Calvert-Lewin still 28, so obviously a younger than Callum Wilson. Has scored goals for Everton, let's be honest. Has been a decent player for Everton, hasn't the last few years, again because of injuries. But when you need a striker, because you cannot, if you lose Callum Wilson, you cannot go into a season with just Witherspoon as a backup. They need a striker. So if you're going to lose Callum Wilson, you need a backup. And again, my budget there's no money to bring in a striker, so it has to be a free agent, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin's the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
Jonathan David's a great shout, but
It is a good show.
Unrealistic.
yeah, unrealistic. So
Calvert-Lewin is a deal that could get done.
yeah, so that's my reasoning for putting Calvert-Lewin down on my list. Although plenty of fans will not want to see Calvert-Lewin in black and white next season.
No. And I think we're going to all probably agree when we go through all of our lists together. It doesn't feel like any of us have levelled the squad up, does it?
No. I made a note of Nico Williams' release clause, but he demands so high wages and also probably doesn't want to leave Bilbao, and if he does, he'll go to Barcelona or Real Madrid.
Yeah.
But £45 million release clause, right winger or left winger, one of the best in the world.
I'm the Paul Mitchell antithesis. I've just gone like, it is fit for purpose. We will spend money.
I've got to say, we've got to caveat the fact that we've just picked our Premier League players because we all watch the Premier
I don't
League.
want really much else to
But I think I would like to see Newcastle, and I've said this for many, many times, be a lot more creative on the European market, because that's where you get your cheaper deals.
Yeah.
We're talking about Anthony Elanga for 60 million. Is there an Anthony Elanga type player out there who plays in Spain or Germany that you can buy for half the price for £20 million less? I'm not Paul Mitchell, who's departing. I'm not a member of the scouting team. I don't have extensive knowledge on a database available, but I would like to see Newcastle show a little bit more nous on the European market, because I think that's where you look at bargain deals. That's where they are, because Premier League premiums, as we're finding out now with lots of fees being covered, is difficult. And that's where Paul Mitchell, when he said not fit for purpose, got it right. But that's the avenue they want to go down. And for Eddie Howe, what he's achieved, Eddie Howe has earned the right to go and sign the players that he wants to sign, but it's a very, very difficult market to shop.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah. I think you can only base on what you know as well in terms of the players who you
Exactly,
pick.
aye.
I've made lists of players who obviously on the continent who I've maybe seen a couple of times in the Champions League and that, but do I really know if they're any good? And then you actually look at them and stats wise, are they even that good? The one player I remember speaking about we use, I think for Juventus, right winger, scored a great goal for Portugal the other day.
Yeah.
Francisco
You've raved about him as well, aye?
He played for Juventus against Aston Villa, Champions League last year, and he was
Son
outstanding.
of
for
Sergio. Son?
Yeah, he is.
Aye.
He was just being sacked by Milan, I think.
Yeah.
Aye,
I was a while back. Aye.
Porto were trying to offload him for 30 million, 22 years old. He's the type of profile, I think stats-wise for Juventus, he didn't actually contribute a lot. He's a bit like a Miguel Almiron, cut inside, curl it top corner, edge of the box, 3 goal a season man. But I think if there's a player there, definitely.
He was lighting against Villa for that part. As I say, that's when our first season was like,
rapid.
wow, he's got something
Well,
about
me a
him.
message about Australia. I wasn't watching that game. You were like,
we
you were
spoke
like,
about
he's the man.
it. Doesn't have the end product, although has good highlight reel player, as I found out when I was doing my research.
Right. Well, I suppose the video's gone on long enough. Let me know
The
what
longest ever.
it possibly is. We've got to get off and do our work or whatever it may be. Right, so do let me know your thoughts on what we've said and your thoughts on your ideal signings. And we will probably see you at some point in the next 7 days with another video.
Mm-hmm.
So let me know if there's anything you particularly want me to cover, but I'm pretty sure the news agenda will move on and we'll be able to talk transfers, as we quite often do this time of year. Right, We've been the Geordie Journals. You know where the sponsors' details are. Like, comment, share, subscribe for all your Geordie Journals content. And we'll see you again soon.